All right, everyone. Increasingly, the legacy media is sort of seeing the writing on the wall with FISA, with the DNC being fucked up, with the fact that Trump is presumably, unless he croaks of a heart attack or something like that, he's going to serve out at least his full first term. He will not be impeached. Mueller is not going to indict him, and nothing's going to happen to him as the result of the Mueller probe. This has been speculated on more and more by independent commentators, but then you have these Johnny-come-latelys in the so-called journalistic community, supposedly like the mainstream. They've got the master's degrees and the suits, and so you know that they're smart and trustworthy. They sure didn't pay their way through fucking college and snort coke the whole time. You know, the trust funders, so they're better than you and I. We're just peasants, basically, according to them. It was funny when the Atlantic puts out an article saying, well, there's no way that Mueller's going to indict Donald Trump. And then I sat there for a second and said, well, that's funny. And then I looked back at my own videos and said, oh, yeah, I said that, how many fucking months ago? Others were saying it, Molyneux and everyone else. Lionel talks about this. Goodman talks about it. Everyone talks about the Mueller probe because there have been periods of time nobody wants to talk about anything else. And you look back, and 9 out of 10 independent commentators are like, yeah, it's meaningless. There's no actual scandal there. The only scandal is that the probe was probably begun because of wrongfully obtained information, if the FISA warrant's any indicator. I think the Atlantic is assuming at this point that that's probably true. Oh yeah, the FISA warrant probably shows that Trump's communications were swept up because of the structure of the way that this surveillance actually operates. I can guarantee you it happened. Whether or not that's the particular content of the memo is a different story. Am I going to see Hillary Clinton listed there as the one who greenlit it? Secretary of State, oh yeah, just go after these people. So that she could have all the the opposition research years ahead of time on maybe what Trump's staff were doing? Am I going to find that it was, Jared Kushner? Was he dicking around at some point? I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. It's going to be explosive probably when it's released, assuming it isn't redacted to all hell. Trump doesn't seem to care if it's released, and has signaled that it probably will be. House Intel voted overwhelmingly to release it. The Atlantic then sees the writing on the wall, says, well, the Mueller probe, because it may have been prefaced all along on stuff that would no longer, in a standard court of law, would no longer be admissible. Because people close to Trump swept up as they were like Manafort or Flynn, because the only reason why there's any intel on them at all is because of a FISA decision that was unlawful to begin with, it's going to be kind of problematic for Mueller to actually fucking do anything. By the way, once again, the one thing that I never hear the lamestream media tell its jaded fan base. Why don't you tell these people that in all of this time you have been stroking yourself to the Atlantic, CNN, MSNBC, even like the Breitbarts and Drudges, like Matt Drudge at this point is no longer a solid fan of Trump either. Anyone who doesn't like Trump, though, a never Trump, neocon or a Democrat partisan, as well as certain third-party members, to tell the truth, and even people on the further right that think that he's sold out. At this point, it's even funnier from them. All of these people spent months. Every time there was some minor revelation in the Mueller probe, Manafort will be indicted. Oh, Trump's gone now. Trump is probably gone. Blue wave, lol. 2020 can't come soon enough. We might not even have to wait that long. It's going to be President Pence soon. We'll kick him out, and then we'll have President Paul Ryan, and he'll step aside and magically give it to Hillary Clinton. Like CNN was suggesting about, what was it, a week and a half or something? Some insane story. She can still do it. It's not going to happen, but she still can. Or was that the Atlantic again, actually? It was reporting on that. It's so asinine. And finally, all of these sites, now you have to let down your audiences. It's like the ultimate edging contest. For a year, they've been edging themselves, and they don't even get a chance to consummate their hands relationship. It must really, really suck to be them. Because they've sat there. They've built, in some cases, careers almost at this point. They've tried to salvage the lamestream media by making up this enormously complicated scandal, which doesn't even exist. A grand conspiracy involving the President of the United States being a Russian pawn, with every decision he makes, everything about his character intricately tied into him being basically a one-dimensional supervillain who hasn't even been fleshed out. That's what they've constructed as the reality for people who actually believe them. When it becomes clear to people that that's totally false, what's going to happen to the Lamestream Media's numbers? What's going to happen to its trustworthiness rankings? I think it'll probably fall a little bit. What happens to the alternative media? Oh, well, told you so! Once again, just like with the election, people are saying, yeah, Trump's in it to win it. Were laughed at. People who said Trump would jump in the first place were laughed at. People who said that he had a chance to be the nominee were laughed at. People who said he would win the presidency were laughed at. People who said that he wouldn't immediately resign because it was all a joke were laughed at, practically. People who said that he would ever get tax reform, that there was a possibility the wall that would be built, that there was a possibility the Republicans would still be extant as a party at this point. Everybody who proclaimed these things was correct, but they were laughed at when they made those claims originally. Unless they did the Johnny-come-lately thing like the Atlantic does now. It says, oh yeah, now we finally get it. Mueller's not going to indict Trump. Trump will probably serve his first full term. He may very well get a second term. You know, health problems could keep that from happening. It could be the economy collapses tomorrow. Then he probably doesn't get reelected. But he's not going to get impeached for it. No, he's doing just fine. He's a year into his first term, and he's doing fine. People just don't think he is because they're not willing to actually look at reality the way that it really is. They're stuck in la-la land. They're stuck in an illusion spun by the Atlantic and MSNBC and salons of the world. The Being Liberals and the Washington Posts have constructed an artificial reality with layer upon layer of propaganda in which Trump is just a villain. He doesn't have redeeming qualities. He's not even, in that reality, he's not really a human being. He's just a symbol. It's like a storybook character, and not a really well-made one. Look, the average high schooler could probably make a less one-dimensional character quite easily. Someone in college prep English, 10th grade, could probably make a short story that has a more fleshed-out supervillain than Donald Trump, according to groups like CNN and The Atlantic. And they want to pass that off as reality. The thing is, there was never such one-dimensionality before the election. Nobody ever thought Trump was one-dimensional before then. Nobody thought, hey, you know, Trump is a real hardline racist lunatic who probably starts World War III. No, they saw him, oh, he's just a Manhattan business elite. Kind of brash. He's unorthodox, yes, he's certainly a showman, but he's smart and he does a decent business job. Even his opponents thought he did a good job making money, which is self-explanatory considering how many properties he owns. Now, you try buying one of his buildings. All these people that dick around over whether he's worth $10 billion or $4 billion don't even know what an asset is, I think. And they're led like sheep to the slaughter ideologically as well by the Lamestream Media. The Lamestream Media has also they tried this over and over. They've morphed the argument. The first thing that they tried to get Trump on was, oh, he's actually a bad businessman. Look, haha, Trump steaks are a wash. Trump wine is only okay. This golf course shuttered. Look at Atlantic City, ha ha ha. But it doesn't work. Trump still could buy and sell these people. He could literally buy some of these media organizations that target him in that way. So over and over again, it's sort of like with the response to the Snowden leaks. You remember, mid-2010s, you remember. In the Obama era, we're talking Edward Snowden comes forward and says, oh, government's spying on you all, it's terrible, it's like, worse than anything, than any conspiracy. It's worse than Alex Jones suggested. Yes, folks, it's that bad. Each and every time he would release a tidbit of info, Clapper or Obama or Pelosi or some idiot would come out and countermand it, say, no, don't worry, it's just metadata. He comes out with another piece, says, no, it's not just metadata, they're lying to you. He did this 5 or 6 times in a row. And the American people oddly still didn't, decide at large that this needed reform. Like it still drags on for a fucking couple of years. The government's openly and routinely violating your right to privacy, leading to the FISA memo problem, by the way, in the first place as well. As a side note, that's tied into the same fucking NSA surveillance. It's tied into the Snowden shit. Nobody wanted to do anything about it. The media has tried to do this to Donald Trump now for a year. Over and over again, at first he's a bad businessman, then he was racist, then he was sexist, now he's a Russian pawn. What's their next argument? When that falls apart, when the Mueller probe ends, Trump hasn't been indicted, Mueller says, well, Manafort did wrong years ago with Tony Podesta, of all people, with a bunch of leftists in league with a dude who chaired Hillary Clinton's fucking presidential campaign. Manafort done goofed, and Flynn was inappropriately talking to the Turkish government and to Russian businessmen. And, you know, this staffer did that, and this staffer did so-and-so. It's not going to touch Trump. Ultimately, what he could do, and he probably should, he should come out and say, yeah, you conduct that kind of intel grab on any other presidential candidate, you're going to net a whole lot of people that have done the same thing. It has nothing to do with the fact that it was Donald Trump. It had everything to do with a lot of politically connected people being connected to presidential campaigns. And politically connected people, especially those established for a long time, tend to be corrupt. Yeah, they launder money. They hire hitmen. They do terrible things. They run drugs. They have slaves. They do these sorts of things. That's the way DC works. It's the swamp, people. It's exactly what Trump was campaigning on. It's exactly what he warned people would happen. And it's exactly what people like myself warned would happen. It's spreading beyond Trump, by the way. Defamatory attacks have begun to metastasize to the creator community, to the point where it's stirring up enough trouble that some people, and then they will remain unnamed, are starting to explicitly attack and try to destroy one another. Again, it's exactly what the legacy media is hoping will happen. Why do you think I'm not even bothering to respond? There are people. Like in the last 24 hours, I get a report from one of my subscribers that another major creator had name-dropped me in a video, only briefly, and brought up the Holocaust denial bullshit. And it's like, one part of me is like, well, I should, message this person. The other part of me is like, who fucking cares? It's not gonna be helpful. It might just start drama. And then it just distracts everybody from doing what they should be doing, which is create the content that starts vampirizing the lamestream. Just making content. It doesn't even have to be political. At this point, we are vampirizing the mainstream. Good. So let's suck the fucking blood right out of their neck. They deserve it. Groups like The Atlantic deserve it. They shouldn't have a single reader. CNN deserves it. No one should watch CNN. They shouldn't watch Fox either. Fuck them. They shouldn't even exist anymore. They're so outdated, so inefficient, so bland. Boring, so dishonest, and have been so boring and dishonest for so many years, in some cases decades. Why on earth would I want to read their newspapers and magazines, watch their TV shows, and pay attention to their pundits on Twitter who spout off incoherently about nonsense and aren't even part of the tech generation? They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to brand themselves in the brave new world that we're now in. They're going to go extinct. They're going to be nostalgic. Eventually, they'll be like ham radio. Yeah, some people still persist in being interested in it. Sometimes it'll be really cool, but it won't be a major force in politics. It won't be a major force in entertainment. They will be in the dustbin of history, and thank goodness. That's about all. Peace out.